doesn't go with me. She must go on the other track.
Middle school's much quieter than high school.
Should we close the library and say?
Oh, is that
Yeah.
Hi.
We were at the high school.
We were on time at the high school. Thank you.
I know, because if you look at the old flyer.
No, it was on my calendar. My district calendar says the high school.
Hey, Hillary, nice to see you.
It's an event in my house. We only have one that works around my neck. I keep losing my phone.
Okay, good morning, everybody.
My phone, I lose around my neck.
Thank you for coming today. My name is Mike Rizzo. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Pupil Services for the Western Public Schools. And I'm really pleased today to be able to introduce Mr. Dennis Riccitelli and Ms. Lisa Wolak, who are going to lead us in a presentation on emotional problem solving and some skills and strategies for parents to work with their children at home. It also is an initiative that we're implementing here in the school system, and you'll hear all about that. Before we get started, though, I just want to set a little bit of a context for this presentation. So the Western Coalition for a Healthy and Safe Community this year sponsored a November Wellness Series. This is the third presentation as part of that Wellness Series. The first presentation was by Dr. Tricia Dahl from Yale University regarding vaping and the dangers of vaping and the epidemic that we're facing in our society. The second presentation, which was done last week, was really around safety and security in the school setting. We did day and evening presentations to families and parents regarding how we address safety and security in the school community. We were partnered with the Western Police in that presentation. Both of those presentations are available on the district website. We do know that it's difficult for people to come out during the day and or in the evening to see these presentations, so we wanted to make sure they were available to people so they could watch them at home. We encourage you to do that. They're both were really informative, well-done presentations. The presentation today is based around the principles of dialectical behavior therapy and skills training for emotional problem solving. This is an initiative that we are working with in our health classes, particularly in high school, and through our advisory classes and guidance curriculum, school counseling curriculum, primarily in grades 6 through 12. So we'll learn a few of the strategies today that we're teaching our students, that we're teaching our staff, and we want to share those with you. A very large thank you should go to the Western Education Foundation for helping us get this work off the ground. The Western Education Foundation, through their generous grant system that they have, we worked with them to get a grant to implement this this year, and into next school year. That grant has been used for staff training and really helping us get this program off the ground. So a very big thank you to the Western Education Foundation. And if you're not familiar with them, please look them up. It's a great organization within our community. And then finally, before I introduce them in a minute, just a huge thank you to Dennis and Lisa, who really took the lead in getting this presentation put together. It's their work that's going to be very impressive for you today. We know that mental health in our community is an issue that's of such large importance. It is something that we struggle with our students. We know it is, and I'll hear about it today, really a major issue within our society. The skills that we're working to help teach our students are coping strategies around emotional regulation, interpersonal effectiveness, distress tolerance. It's the skills that they need to manage and cope with their emotions. The phrase that I think is really relevant here, and I'm going to stop talking, is that this phrase has come up multiple times in these presentations, is that this is an us issue. This is about all of us. This isn't about what is the school doing, or what are people doing in their homes, or what are we doing elsewhere. This this is something that we all need to deal with together. It's about us. And by working together, by using similar language, by using similar strategies, by stressing the importance of these kinds of things, whether it be vaping or the safety and security of our schools or the emotional problem solving, by working on it together, we will make Weston a stronger community. And that's what our goal is here. And then last, I'll say that we want this to be fun, right? You're gonna be provoked here to think about things. When I went through this training, I certainly reflect as a professional, but I also very much reflect as a parent. And you hear things, and you're gonna recognize, oh my gosh, I said that, maybe I shouldn't have said that. That's okay. We're learning, and it is a process, and it's, I'm not perfect with it by any means, but I am conscious of it, I'm aware of it, and I try to do better as a result, and that's our goal here. So finally, I'm going to just introduce Dennis and Lisa. Dennis is a health teacher at Weston High School. He has taken a wonderful lead in implementing these skills and strategies for our students. And Lisa, of course, is our high school principal, who has championed this effort with her staff. So I'm going to turn it over to Lisa.
Thank you, Mr. Rizzo. Well, good morning, welcome. For those of you that don't know me, I am Lisa Wallach. I've been principal now for, this is my 12th year, and I've been in the district for 34 years. I'm really excited about this initiative because I've seen a lot of different initiatives coming up. And this, I think, really gets at some practical skills and how we can help our students. All the time I hear about kids are stressed, kids can't cope, it's hard, high school is hard, the academic program is hard, you add in all this social media, how can they problem solve, how can they be successful in high school, how can they thrive, and it is a challenging place. So when we first heard about this dialectical behavioral therapy, and Mike was talking about it, I was like, I don't even know what dialectical means. What does dialectical behavioral therapy mean? Because it sounded so very technical. So we learned through the training, it's when two opposite ideas can be true at the same time, and when considered together, can create a new truth and a new way of viewing the situation. And I think that's really important, is how can we view the situation through our teenagers' eyes, and how can we validate that, see where they're coming from, and then help them problem solve in a way that is going to effectively move them forward. Oh, do I have to use this thing? There, I can use it. Okay. So whenever we talk about schools, we talk about 3 tiers. Oftentimes you hear about 3 tiers with regards to academics, for example. Tier 1 is basically, the academic program that we're looking at academics that all the students take. Tier 2 is when students perhaps need some kind of an intervention to to succeed. Perhaps they need a structured study. They need some one-on-one work with the school counselor or psychologist. That's pretty much tier 2. And tier 3 is when you have a very select population that you are providing interventions in a small group setting to help them be successful. What we're talking about right here is tier 1, which is what's so great about this, in this this program that Dennis has been giving. It's for every student. And basically what we're looking at, they call it DBT Steps A, and basically what we're looking at is how to find that balance between the academic and the decision-making and coping strategies so that they can be successful. This was a powerful statistic that they shared with us, and they were talking about 25% of the students suffering from an anxiety disorder in the US. We know that we have students with this background here. We have students that are really struggling, that can't cope, that become obsessive about different aspects of their life, their grades, social anxiety, all of that. And of course, social media doesn't really help with it either. So how do we help them and give them the tools? All right. This is the case of why we use DBT in schools, because it targets all of these things, and Dennis will talk a little bit more about that. But the reality is we are on the front lines. The counselors, the teachers, they're on the front lines. Someone came down the other day and a girl was crying in guidance and said, "What's the matter? I just need to talk to someone." That happens, right, Andy? Andy, our counselor here at the middle school. It happens. And someone has to be available to validate that child and help that child work through. But it happens on a daily basis. Okay, so the idea is if we can align the strategies so that with practice, teen skills become automatic, and how to support the social emotional learning curriculum. Okay, so we were really at a good opportunity with this because the state of Connecticut decided that we had to increase our health requirements. So instead of health being a quarter, it was going to be a semester in both 9th and 10th grade, which was perfect because at the same time we were looking at DBT, this was the new requirement. We said, great, because we have something built into our program now by increasing the health instead of having 26, 30 classes, now you have about 60, is that correct?
It went from 22 to 44.
22 to 44, so it doubled, and that gave us the window of opportunity to be able to put this program in 9th grade health. And then we're phasing it in. And he will talk a little bit more of the nuts and bolts, specifically of the lessons that we will do. But it can't just be done in health in 9th and 10th grade, and that's it. So our school counseling seminars have aligned themselves. We do 2 seminars a year per grade level, and the counselors who are also trained have components of the DBT program dealing with mindfulness, problem solving, things like that within their seminars. Then we also looked at advisory. We have advisory twice a month at the high school. Basically, it's a teacher with 15 students that follows the students through till 12th grade. And there's 2 advisories a month. One of them has been dedicated to DBT, to practicing and learning some of the skills. That's for everyone 9th through 12th grade. And then we talk about here also in class. So all of the teachers are being trained in this. It can't just be a one-shot deal in health or we're going to do it again in seminar. What we did was we actually gave this similar presentation to the teachers at the beginning of the year. We said, how can you be able to do this in advisory, and perhaps there are takeaways that you'd like to do in class. So we have a faculty meeting where, it's usually Dennis or Kara Sweezy, takes the lesson that they're going to do in advisory and we practice it. We actually do it at the faculty meeting. We practice it so that the teachers feel comfortable. Here's the lesson plan, this is what you have to do, and then we can ensure that it's embedded well on the day of advisory. So this month they're doing kind of a little bit of a recap where the kids are going to see, I think it's like a 15-minute video on it. Everybody has practiced it, looked at the questions. We did it in the faculty meeting to ensure its success. And then the day of advisory, we double check who is absent. We have a group of people that if someone is absent, maybe I'll go in, maybe Ms. Cavoni will go in, Ms. Sullivan, one of the counselors, to make sure that the lesson goes well in advisory. And what we have found is that there are teachers that are actually doing it in class. We did a survey the other day asking the teachers, how are you feeling with this? What more do you need to take their pulse and comfortability? How have you been using this? And there are teachers that are doing things like Mindful Monday, right in class, where they're practicing some of these techniques in their academic programs, which is great because it reinforces it. The other thing that we're doing this is when you look at the sports and the co-curricular activities, some of it is just to make sure that everyone is on the same page, using the same language and the same strategies with the students. Okay, so for example, when you look at athletics and you have the coaches that spend a tremendous amount of time with our students. So we went to the fall coaches meeting and we practiced some of the strategies and gave them strategies of how to communicate effectively with the athletes so that they understand what we're doing in school and they can carry that out into the field. Next Monday, we're doing it again for the winter sports. And it's just looking at things a little bit differently. Sometimes it's just a slight tweak to an approach that can really go a long way with making our students feel heard and validated. And then the school community, well, this is kind of our piece, to be able to share techniques with parents. I will tell you that a lot of these techniques we started practicing amongst our faculty and almost calling each other on some of the behaviors, which has been powerful. You almost find yourself self-correcting yourself. For example, one of the things you aren't supposed to say is, you know, you should have done this, but there's not supposed to be any but anymore. We never say but, we only say and. And so if you say but at a meeting, or if I say, Lisa, okay, and, you catch yourself, because it's a way to, again, how to approach something in a way that is meaningful and easy. So these are the DBT assumptions, and especially the first one is another thing that we keep saying, and it's kind of great to reiterate, like, look, people are doing the best they can in the moment, they're trying to improve, right? So you have a colleague or you have a student in class, no one wants to fail. No one wants to be unprepared. So, someone is struggling, they're doing the best they can in the moment. And that's what we have to kind of accept to be able to move forward positively. And then you can look at the rest of sort of the assumptions about need to do better, try harder, be more motivated, but accepting people right where they are, like doing the best they can, okay? This poor little girl that was crying, she's doing the best she can. She came down, she needed help. That's what we want them to be able to do. People may not have caused all their problems and they have to solve them anyway. And these are some of the things that Dennis has worked with his health team about, okay, this is the situation that you're in. I'm not saying that you caused it, but how can you get out of it? And I think we all need help with that. Not just, I look at emotionally distressed teenagers, and then I also look at myself and how I work even as a mom in my family. So there's a lot of good takeaways here, I think, for adults. And then the whole idea of continually practicing and learning new behaviors and reinforcing that so that it becomes second nature. So this was a big word that we focused on, and that's the idea of validation. And it's something so simple because validation isn't about like agreeing, it's just about validating how someone feels. So when someone comes and they're upset, it's not just solving the problem or moving along, but letting them know that you can empathize with the way that they feel. And that's really important. And that's one of the things, especially we were talking with the staff and the coaches. Someone comes up and they're frustrated or this and that. Take an extra moment to validate that person's feelings can go a long way. They need to feel that they are heard. They need to feel that you understand. You might not agree, but that you understand where they are. And then the idea to really, to confirm how they feel, and then once you do that, it gets so much easier to move forward and try to help them solve the problem. So there are many different levels of validation, but just looking right here is what can you validate? The importance of the problem, the difficulty of the task, the emotional pain, feeling out of control, just saying, okay, I'm gonna validate this. I'll use a story from my own personal life. So my daughter is in a very intensive program. She's 25, Weston High graduate, class of 2013. And she called, and she was all stressed out between work, and then she had this clinical thing, and then she has to go to the hospital and work. She's in an extensive, intensive nursing program. All of these things. And I keep hearing about it as it gets closer and closer to finish. And I'm tired too. And I thought, okay, Lisa, just validate. Listen to her and empathize with her. And by catching that, and yes, I hear you, it really must be awful. I'm so sorry that you're so tired. I'm going to send you, I ended up sending her a care package at the end of it to kind of lift her spirits, but just to be able to say, yeah, that really stinks. Your car got towed because you drove it home, not thinking about, great, how much is this going to cost me to get a car out, because you were tired from working an evening shift, and that's really awful. I am so sorry that happened to you. It just deflates it, which that's kind of what we want, so then that people don't feel like they're out of control. So we're going to look at the 6 different levels of validation, and then we're going to practice them a little, which is always fun.
So yeah, here's where I pick up. Talking about the 6 levels of validation. And again, my name is Dennis Riccitelli. I'm one of the health teachers at the high school. And not only am I a health teacher, but I'm a parent, like you guys are. So I have a freshman high school student at home and a freshman college student. And I really knew nothing, as Lisa was talking about earlier, I knew nothing about DBT when we were told that, you know, here's an initiative that, you know, we may have an opportunity to jump on and, you know, bring to our kids here at Weston. I had no idea about this initiative. I had no idea about DBT. I started reading the book. And it's amazing, in the last 3 months that we've had this program, not only are we putting it to students in the classroom, but I'm using it every day at home. And you guys, hopefully, you guys will take home some of these tips that I'm going to share with you. You are going to get homework. I am a teacher. You're not leaving here without homework. So there are going to be some take-home points that you can use. And it's the same thing we do with the kids. We practice. It's a lot of these skills are about practicing. So hopefully you'll hear some of the language and the skills from your kids, and you can kind of recognize it, recognize the terminology, and be able to kind of make sense of it all. And it will make sense the more you use it. So as Lisa was saying, 6 levels of validation. And it's kind of a continuum. The higher level, it's 1 through 6. 6 is the highest level of validation. Even if you can just get to the first level of validation in a conflict, that's important. So usually we validate when a student is distressed, when a student is feeling emotion, heightened emotion, aka maybe in an argument with mom or dad or with a sibling. Validating is really important. First level, unbiased listening. So that's you listening to your son or daughter. It's not being on your phone or writing, yeah, I'll be with you in a minute. Like, it's looking at them, making eye contact. That goes a long way to tell them that you are listening to them, you hear their problem. So that's the first level, it's just unbiased listening, eye contact. Second level is accurate reflection, kind of hearing what they're saying. If something may not be really clear, say it back to them. So what I'm hearing is that you're really uncomfortable with X, Y, and Z, and you want to do A, B, and C. So accurate reflection, so that they know that yes, you are listening to them. The third level is articulating non-verbalized emotions or thoughts. That's the student, as Lisa was talking about, that little girl that came down and she was crying. A lot of times, when you're in that emotion mind, when you're having that distress or anxiety, sometimes you don't even know what you're upset about. But it's the tears that you can recognize as parents, or as us as teachers, counselors, that we can recognize and we can validate, the fact that they are upset. You can see it in their eyes. I see that you're really upset, by the look in your face. What can we do to solve this problem? Really important to understand with validation, though, you're validating, you're showing them that you understand, doesn't mean that you're agreeing. So if you're in an argument or conflict with your son or daughter, you're still holding your ground as a parent. You're not giving in to them, but at least you're understanding. Remember, there's 2 sides to every conflict. Seeing that opposite side, which we're going to talk about in a minute, that dialectical thinking, is really important. So validation doesn't mean agreement, it just means understanding. You're understanding the struggle that they're in right now. It doesn't mean that you agree with how they handled it or how they managed it, but you're understanding. The fourth one, understanding in terms of their biological dysfunction. Sometimes when we're really tired, when we're sick, sometimes we're cranky, we're irritable. We may fly off the handle and yell at our spouse because of other external factors that we really can't control. So recognizing that as a potential, my son or daughter is yelling at me, not really acceptable, and it could be that they're not feeling well. this morning, or, you know, they got 2 hours of sleep because they were studying for that big test, which is also stressful for them. So understanding that. Number 5, understanding in terms of the present context or normative function. So that's where you, as a parent or as a counselor or us as teachers, can really say to them, I understand what you're going through. It must be really difficult for you. I know you're really concerned about your grade. You really care. I know you have known you for a couple of years. Grades are really important to you, and I understand that the 60 on the test that you just got must be really hard for you. And the next test, hopefully this will be a learning experience, will be better. And there's other ways that you can get your grade back up. So that's 5. Number 6, radical genuineness. This is more of on the clinical side for like counselors. We don't see this as much in the classroom, but this is where you put it back into their terms of understanding. I understand, kind of like what I just said, I understand that failing this test is really difficult for you. I understand that at home, I know your mom and dad, I know they really care about your grades. This must be really traumatic for you, and that's why you're feeling the way you're feeling. And I know that next time, you know, you can do more to prepare, get extra help to get over this problem. It can also involve some self-disclosure. This is where you may call them out. You know, you know, if they got caught cheating, you know, cheating is not acceptable. So as a parent, you're upset, you're angry. But looking at the other side of the story, they cheated because they felt that intense pressure to do so well on that test. So you're not agreeing with the fact that they cheated, but you understand why they cheated. It's still, you need to work at getting beyond that problem, but you got to kind of call out the the elephant in the room and call them on the fact that they were cheating. They have to accept the consequences for that behavior. So that's the levels of validation. So then there's the other side. There's invalidating. So that's pervasively negating or punishing, ignoring or missing behavior, independent of the actual validity of the behavior itself. So this is us as parents, and I do it all the time, or I used to. I'm getting better at it. This is, you'll do that because I said so. It's so deflating for kids. So looking at them, validating them is really, really important, as opposed to just, you know, dismissing them, being, you know, you're going to do that because I said so, not making eye contact. That would be an invalidating environment. So Lisa and I are going to kind of do a role play here of a scenario. And this is something that I've seen it at my house. So here's the scenario. Sam had his Xbox taken away for a week because he didn't do homework over the long weekend. He didn't do the 2 assignments that were due, and his math grade dropped as a result. So as a parent, Sam had his video games taken away, which is really traumatic for a 12 or 13-year-old kid. Sometimes that's a big part of their socialization with friends. So, and a new video game just came out that all of his friends are playing. Sam goes to mom and asks for his Xbox back. So, Mom, I was wondering, you know, this new game just came out on Xbox. All of my friends are playing. I know I got my Xbox taken away. Is there any way I can get that back? Mom?
What?
Can I get my Xbox back? Geez, did you hear anything I just said?
Sam, you know what I told you. You're not getting it back, okay? You bombed the math test. You didn't do your homework. No.
Mom, I did. I talked to my teacher. She let me turn those assignments in. My grade's going to go back up. She just hasn't put it into Power School yet. Can I please get it back? God, Mom.
No, Sam, you can't, okay? What don't you understand? No.
So that would be an example of an invalidating environment. I've seen it in my house, I gotta say. So here's your task right now.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Given that same scenario, of Sam losing the Xbox, how would you validate that? Yeah,
How long has his Xbox been taken away when he asked to have it back?
good question. All right, let's say a week. Yeah, a
But
week
it
is
says
standard
a
in my
week.
house.
It's been taken away for a week. 'Cause okay, so from this, it's supposed to be taken away for a week?
Yeah, so let's say 5 days
Okay,
later,
so
Sam
he's
comes
close.
back.
Okay.
Yeah, getting close.
Now he wants to. Okay, so, this is the audience participation part. One of you is gonna be Sam, one of you is gonna be the parent. We have 8 groups of 2. You have to participate, pair up, decide, and go to it. See how you would validate. Everybody has to pair up. Wait, we need a partner here. Here. This gentleman needs a partner. Okay, go ahead. How are you going to validate Sam?
That is the time they feel the most comfortable talking to
Well,
someone.
you mentioned when you were asking for it that
Talking this way.
assignments, right? You're turning those in. And is there any way that you can
Okay, anybody ready to share this? Volunteers to do it for the group. We're not moving on to one pair volunteers to perform. Thank you, Ann. Oh wait, can you find somebody in the back? Yes, why don't you choose? Laura and okay, Laura and Andy are going to do it.
Do they need the microphone?
Listen to key things that they say that indicate to you validation.
Sam is not taking this seriously.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I know, Sam, that the Xbox is really important to you, and you really enjoy playing, and it's a way to connect with your friends, but we did have the problem, oh, and. There's the problem with the math grade, and it was kind of getting in the way of doing your homework. I know, it's hard, it's hard for you to see that your expectations. And I know how important the grades are to you, and they're important to me.
And
So-
I can play it, and it won't be there bothering you as much. It's really
Yeah. I see, you can see how it benefits me when you play the game. Thank you, Sam.
Play that role.
So that was really good. That was really good. And you played the role of Sam extremely well.
So it starts off like that, but does it always end that nicely in real life? Like we try, and then they might say, well, you're just being mean or whatever, and run away and slam the door. Right? That could happen, but that's okay. We just keep practicing this approach and continuing.
And remember, validating is not agreeing, it's not compromising. So you're not giving him his Xbox back, but at least he feels like his voice has been heard. So, and that's the important part of validating, is that the kids feel that their voice has been heard, that they're just not being ignored, and you're not getting it back because I said so. Again, hurtful. Yeah.
Well, and also I think that there has to be, like, there's a boundary, a framework we're working under. You know, so many times I deal with a kid that the rules don't apply to me. Yeah, they do. Like, the rules, there are rules, and they apply. I understand what you're saying and validating the way you're feeling, but, you know, we're parents. There are rules, this is it. Is it easy? No. But, you know, the rules have to apply.
But I was thinking that if that was really my kid, I would think of like two options. One would be that I would like consider actually maybe I did take it away for a long time and we could go look at his math grade or something. Or I could stick with that and then he might still be upset, but maybe a little bit less upset. Because as we were thinking, I was like, what would be my next thing to do like after that? You know, and that's where it kind of is hard. Like, what's your next thing?
Exactly.
And every situation is not black and white. So if you feel as a parent that maybe that punishment was a little too severe, and maybe Sam did a really great job of connecting with his teachers, getting those assignments turned in, you could use that as a learning experience and give him back his Xbox with the understanding that you learned from this, I'm proud of you, kind of as a reward in that sense. So you're not replacing your normal parenting skills, you're just, it's individualized.
In order to kind of follow this philosophy, do you have to validate what they're saying at the moment they're asking for that validation? Because a lot of times I feel that the timing is just, I'm in the middle of something, I'm doing something, and I simply cannot give them the attention that they need at that very moment, especially when they're asking to cut short a valid punishment that they knew they deserved. So I feel manipulated sometimes by my own kids and like demanding the attention at the most inopportune moment that they're well aware it's
Yeah.
not time.
Oh, yeah. That's why they're doing it. Yeah.
But in order to do this, can I reject that, or do I have to validate it right at that moment?
Excellent question. And I would answer that. I don't know that I'm the authority on answering this, but I would answer that as I would validate and say, I hear your concerns, make the eye contact, say, I hear your concerns. I understand the situation that you're in and the pressure that you're feeling. We are going to talk about this at, set a time. We are going to talk about this after dinner. As soon as dinner is over, we are going to have this conversation.
We had that question with the coaches, and the coaches, situations where a player goes up, finally has enough nerve and said, Coach Hedge, can I speak to you about, and it's not the right time to have this conversation. Like they're getting ready for a drill or they're this and that. And so what we talk to the coaches about doing is saying something like, Ruby, I know you want to talk to me about this, and I want to be able to, we need to be able to talk about it and take our time talking about it, and I have to get through these other couple of things, but at the end of practice, you and I are going to sit down because I want to hear what you have to say. I know this is, you're really concerned about that. So when they're almost deliberately picking a time where it's always the worst moment, I feel like, whenever I get a call, oh gosh, why are you calling me right now, And you just have to say, I want to talk to you about this, but I have to get through this and this. Like Dennis said, we'll talk about it at this point. I need you, can I count on you for that to just wait? And sometimes I find if I lower my voice and really look, I do this a lot at school, they really focus, we'll talk, but I need you to wait until 7th period when I have time in my schedule. Okay, can I count on you for that? Thank you, Ms. Hedge. A little bit dramatic probably more at school, but I think it's perfectly fine to say, you know what, we need to talk about this. This is important. It's important to you, but you're gonna have to give me a little bit of time to get through some stuff. I have to cook dinner, I have to take your brother to hockey, I have to do this, and then we'll talk. Well, but then, please, just give me some space, and we'll get to it. We'll talk later. But it's worse when you engage in the moment where you cannot give them the time, then it really escalates and gets ugly, I find.
Right, but that follow-up is really important. Make sure that follow-up right after dinner does happen. Because that is part of the validation that the conversation did happen.
I said a quick comment. I think that is really important because, and this conversation too for parents, because besides being a parent, I coach as well. And when my own kids and players come to me, they're prepared for that conversation. They have that, what you're telling me here, they come to me with that. They're prepared to engage in a question that I'm not ready to answer very often. And when you want to snap and say, no, get back to that or get back to this, they already have a planned response, but they have the look of rejection set in right away, like that's not what I get at school. So I like the fact that you're doing this. So we're seeing what you're doing, because then they're they are expecting a reaction from me as a parent or a coach that I might not be giving right away. So the fact that it gets you off guard seems to be maybe not part of the plan, but it seems to be, it could be, that's what they're going for, to get you when they can. Or either when available or just at any time, but I hear what you're saying,
I mean, I always tell the adults, I said, and I'll tell this to the teachers, you control the time, you control the place, you control the how something is delivered. You know, you're not gonna just talk right in front of other kids. We talk to the coaches about that. If you're gonna sit down and have a conversation with the player, where are you gonna do it? How are you gonna do it? When are you going to do it? All those things matter. You know, do you have a place where, you know, you can sit down and look at the person if that's what's needed? But think about that, because especially with stressed out teenagers, all of those little things really matter. You know, like the first thing I'll say to them, like, would you like a bottle of water? No, I'm fine. Are you sure you're okay? Because if you gotta kind of de-escalate it. And we control that. And we should take advantage of that.
Good. Okay, so moving on to dialectics. Lisa spoke about it earlier a little bit, but thinking dialectically is a way of examining opposing ideas. So there are more than one truths to an argument, and we have to be able to see both truths in the argument and respect both truths. Even if you don't agree with it, you still have to acknowledge it and respect the other truth in the argument. And understand that in conflict, aka an argument with your child or an argument with your spouse, a lot of times it's black or white. It's all or nothing. It's my way, I'm right, you're wrong, and that's it. So you kind of dig your feet in and you get stuck in that thinking that there's no middle ground. Thinking dialectically empowers you to be able to see the other person's perspective, not necessarily agree with it, but at least understand where they're coming from. And that's what we're trying to teach the kids. That, yes, you know, we hear so many times from the kids, my mother never lets me stay on until midnight, or my mother never, you know, gives me money to go to movies. Well, is it never? Is it, you know, or maybe my mother doesn't let me stay out that late, and other mothers or parents, you know, do more often. So we try to get the kids to think of the parent perspective. But it's important to look at it as parents, thinking of it from the child's perspective as well. And the more we can think that way, the more we can think dialectically, the more we get away from that all or nothing, or you're going to do that because I said so kind of thinking. And you're trying to find a synthesis, not a compromise. You're not going to give in. You're not going to give in and give them what they want, but you're going to find some kind of a middle path, or maybe some kind of a compromise. If nothing else, they're going to know that their voice was heard and that you understand their side of the story. Go ahead.
One of the big things that the trainer said to me, I actually have like, I'll write these little phrases down to remember them. And one of the things that she said to me, and I think, you know, whenever I'm going in, I'm going to have a meeting with someone, she said, you want to listen to understand, not to respond. Like, don't start thinking of your response while someone's talking. Take a minute and listen to understand, to truly understand. Because if you don't, then you can't do any of this. You know, to be able to synthesize all of this, you really have to listen to understand. And sometimes it's painful because you're tired and, oh gosh, now I gotta listen. Just listen to understand, because it's just so much more helpful, and like Dennis said, it might be, I'm not going to, this isn't gonna have the outcome you want, but I really understand how you're feeling, and those kinds of things I think are very helpful, just in general with dealing with relationships with adolescents, and adults for that matter, just to try to stop, to listen, to understand. You know, my mind works very, very fast, and I'm thinking, oh, okay, and I want to respond, and I've got to keep telling myself, listen to understand. Even just saying it, in my mind slows it down, and I think it's important.
Does that way of thinking make sense? It was, you know, it took a little bit of time for me to get it, but because I was thinking that of the compromise, and thinking dialectically is not giving in. It's just understanding, validating the other point of view, where your kids are coming from, still holding your ground, but maybe coming to some kind of a middle ground or synthesis along the way.
So is this the kind of information that the students are receiving in this same thinking, in terms of the kids and what they're being taught and how sort of an advisory, I understand it's just one piece of the whole thing, but are they getting the same information?
They are. In fact, the next scenario that we're going to put you guys to work on is one of the scenarios that I used in class. And the kids were able to, we're using, I mean, some of these words are big words for 13-year-old kids. You know, I guarantee none of the students that came into our 9th grade health classes have ever heard of thinking dialectically. But when you put it into terms and give them scenarios that they can work through and understand, yeah, they do get it. And this next scenario is one of the ones that I used in class. So here's a scenario. Again, it's not, you know, a crazy scenario that you haven't seen before. So your child comes to you and says, there's something going on. There's a function at so-and-so's house. Can I go? Everyone's going to be there. Well, what time are you coming home? Well, I want to come home at midnight. And you as a parent, no, you're not coming home at midnight. No. I have an appointment early in the morning, and I can't come to get you at midnight. No, you're not going. Mom, all of my friends are going, and I really want to be there. And again, thinking of the other side of the story, from their point of view, there is a lot of pressure. Peer pressure is big in high school, middle school, high school. You know, the pressure, the fear of missing out. You want to be there with all of your friends. It's going to be a fun time. So understanding their point of view is really important. We teach the kids, well, your mother or father said no. Think of their side of the story. So we get the kids to take on the role of the parent and say, well, I understand my parent's point of view. When you're in the middle of a conflict and emotions are high, you're in emotion, we'll talk about after. Sometimes you miss that. So we try to get them to think dialectically and consider both sides of the argument. So do that. Partner back up. Take this scenario. I want to stay out till midnight, and my parents want me home by 10. Maybe we'll do it this way. Maybe this side of the room, take the teenage view. Like, what is the teenage argument? And this side of the room, take the parent argument, and then we'll come to a middle ground. So take a few minutes to do that.
Talk with your partner. What would your point of view be if you were the kid or if you were the parent?
Yeah, let's say 9th grade. 9th graders.
Are they trying to
Okay, so what are some of the things that from the kids' point of view?
Well, everything that you said is, they don't want to feel excluded.
Excluded.
They don't want to miss the Instagram post.
Instagram, right? I'm not gonna be on social media with the in-group. What else?
It's more unfair as a parent, other parents are letting their kids say their personality.
Okay. Did you hear that? She said, that the parents are being unfair because of course everybody else's parents letting them do it except mine being mom and dad. Any other sides from the kid point of view? I'm gonna be socially ostracized. I won't be on Instagram. I'll have to walk in Monday morning to my classes and know that everybody else was at this event and I was the loser that wasn't there. You're ruining my social life. The counties are coming up, or the Evergreen, and how am I ever even going to get a date? And now that's going to impact that weekend. And then it's the holidays, and no one will want to bother with me over vacation. Sorry.
So parents, do you see that point of view? And it's understandable. It's that age, right? I mean, that's what teenagers feel at that age. It's all age-appropriate stuff. So what's the parent point of view? What's
Something that late, you ask to speak to the other parents. You say, which other parents should I talk to about this event?
absolutely okay? What else?
Well, if I have to pick you up, it's too late.
Okay, I don't want to pick you up. It's too late. Midnight is too late.
I think to get them to talk with you about why you're concerned about it. Share your concern. Just like you listen to their concern and then you have them listen to your concern. And then you say, so what shall we do? How are we going to fix this? You know, what is it that I'm worried about? And if what you're worried about is it's too late for you to pick up because you get up early in the morning, then is there something else we could do? Can you think of anything else we could do? Can I think of anything else we could do? If it's there's no supervision after 10 o'clock and I'm not having you in a situation which you might not be able to handle yourself, although you might not want to say that. But you know, if it's that I'm concerned that there's no staff or no at this event after 10 o'clock, and so that makes me uncomfortable, then what do we do about that? You know, is there anything we can do about that? And even if we decide that we're going to stick with what I said, at least it feels like I listened.
Right, absolutely. At least they feel like their voice was heard. And hopefully the kids can understand the parent's perspective. So again, thinking dialectically and working through this problem dialectically, we're not compromising. It's not like, okay, I'll let you go, but you have to be home by 11. No.
I think being truthful is a very important thing.
Absolutely.
You know, like my son's answer to this, which we've had, is, well, I'll pay for an Uber. How about that? You know, and I didn't want to say what my real concern was, because my real concern was, is he going to be safe?
Yeah,
Not
is
just
he going to
getting
be
home.
safe? Safe where?
Wherever the party was.
Wherever the
You know,
party is.
What's this party going to be like? I've got no control over it. He's only 15. Is this a good idea?
Who's going to be there? What's going to go on?
You have to be truthful to them about what your fears are. You can't just say it's important because I don't want to drive late at night, if that isn't what the problem is.
Right.
Right, no, you have to be truthful in your reasoning, absolutely.
Yeah, along the same lines, I found when I've had conversations like this with my kids, the kids that are staying later, it's a much smaller group than my son ever admits to me right away.
Yeah, of course.
And it's often not his friends, and it's often not people he would generally stay with, but he's just hearing people are staying. So in his mind, it's a much larger picture. Then when we start to really dig deeper, we realize it's probably only going to be these 3 or 4 kids because they live right next door, or something like that.
Yeah.
And the rest of the kids are all going home anyway, so we that ends up coming out. There's not really a middle path, but we end up both understanding something that we didn't consider initially.
Yeah.
And again, a middle path, again, it's not a compromise, but it might be something along the lines of, well, the first thing I need to do is call to make sure that there is going to be parent supervision, whatever. There's not going to be drinking or whatever. Those go without saying. But then it might be, yeah, I do have an appointment in the morning. Is there any way that your friends can come to our house? You know, we can welcome your friends to here. You can watch movies in the basement. You can hang out here. That would be an acceptable middle ground. Or you can say, you know, I hear what you're saying. I know you don't want to miss out. I do have an appointment in the morning that I really can't miss. I can't come out at midnight and pick you up. Is there any way that maybe next weekend, you can have people at our house, or you can stay out till a little bit later till 11, something along those lines. So,
Yeah. Or you could ask if the kid is older, like, well, what's your plan? You want to stay out later, well, what's your plan? Who's going to bring you home? Well, there are driving laws. You can't be driving around after 11 o'clock if you're a new driver. Your friend can't be driving you around, and if he gets pulled over because he has kids in the car, he's not supposed to be there, then what could happen? Well, your friend could not be driving anymore. I mean, sometimes it depends on also, I would say use some of those things because those are realities. The other thing I would say is, it kind of gets to your point where they always pick the worst moment to ask you, is we try to, when we teach, always anticipate confusion, anticipate miscommunication, and get out ahead of it. So, the long weekend is coming for Thanksgiving. And instead of waiting saying, oh, so what are your plans this weekend? So if you're kind of setting the ground for any conversations, that then it's not like all of a sudden it comes out of the blue at the worst possible moment and can turn and escalate like this because it's happening in 2 hours. So that's just sort of my advice, to kind of, you continually sort of have these conversations, if you will, about what they're planning to do or what they're doing, their activities, things like that. So then they kind of know that this is it. I'm open to listening. I'm thinking out about what's going to happen, over the Christmas break or whatever. And it sort of sets the stage for those conversations when it's not as emotional.
good. So again, recap on dialectics, just understanding that there's two sides to the story and try to get to the understanding of why your child is asking you for those things, their point of view, and we're teaching the kids to do the same on the parent. Okay, moving on to mindfulness. So mindfulness, again, when DBT was introduced to us last spring or over the summer, I have experience with mindful meditation. And we do that with our seniors. We do a lot of meditation and progressive muscle relaxation techniques with our seniors who are stressed with the college application process. So I was thinking of mindfulness more in terms of the quiet, the meditation. We do some John Kabat-Zinn, from that standpoint. But that's not really what we're talking about in mindfulness in the DBT setting. So before we begin each of our DBT lessons, we do a mindful activity. So I'm going to do a mindful activity with you guys right now. So this is it's an example of a mindful activity that we do with the students. So what I'm going to ask you to do is put your papers and things to the side and just stand in front of your chairs. Get to a comfortable position, feet grounded on the ground. Just move to your seat, the front of your seat, so you can feel the chair. Just touch the back of your legs. Arms in a relaxed position. And I'm going to count to 3. When I count to 1, again, you're going to just kind of breathe, take a slow breath in. I'm going to count to 2. You're going to take a breath out, relaxed. And then on 3, you're going to begin the activity. What I'm going to ask you to do is close your eyes, and in your mind, you're going to count, envision the second hand on a clock. And in your mind, you're going to count to 60. So you're going to count for a minute in your mind. Silently, in whatever fashion that you choose. And when you get to 60, just quietly and slowly just sit back down in the chair. All right? Okay. So 1, 2, and 3. Begin. Okay. Okay, so during that activity, what did you notice? What were your thoughts? What were your emotions that were going through your mind? Judgments, maybe?
I noticed my breath, and my breath was going faster than how I anticipated myself counting. I was always trying to slow down my breath.
Okay, so you noticed your breathing. What else?
It felt long to me, like longer than a minute. Just, like to slow down and actually do that, like just felt like a long minute.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What else did you notice?
I noticed I had to keep picturing the actual clock and minute hand in my mind to stay on track and jump off a little bit. I had to keep that visual.
Okay. Yep. I did the same thing when I went through it in our training. Another one of my thoughts in my mind was, when I sat, did I win? Did I get it right on this? It's all about the competition. We did have one person right on. 60 seconds, exactly. Yeah. So, and the first person sat down at 25 seconds, and then the last person sat down at 90 seconds. So it is what it is. But why did we do that? Why is that considered like a mindful activity to do in class?
Because it puts you right in the moment, and you're left with not thinking of anything else, just the task at hand.
Right. So it puts your mind, you have to focus on your mind and trying to keep track in your mind of that second hand. So it forces you to put other distractions out of your mind. That's really what being mindful is learning to be in control of our thoughts as opposed to our thoughts and our emotions being in control of us. And it happens because we're human, and a lot of times our mind does become distracted because we live busy lives. Our kids lead busy lives, and we all become distracted. But being mindful is a way that you can practice. Bringing your mind back. If your mind strays, you feel it, you understand it. It's okay. Don't judge that, but take that moment, almost take that distraction. The way I think about it is, I put it on a conveyor belt and I just let it go, and then I bring myself back to what's going on in front of me in this moment. So that's what being mindful is. So, and why be mindful? These are the reasons. These are some of the DBT standards. So being mindful gives us more choice and control over our behavior. A lot of times when we're distracted, we can become, if we're distracted by, let's say, something that happened earlier in the day, and that's bothering us, it can almost put us into a motion mind while we're sitting in math class or English class. So it gives us more choice and control over our behavior. It can reduce our emotional concern and increase pleasure. It can help us make more wise mind decisions. We'll talk about wise mind in a minute. Focuses our attention, can lead us to be more effective and productive. It increases our compassion for ourselves and for others. Sometimes if we're distracted, we're judging other people, we can judge ourselves. And then it lessens pain, tension, and stress. Sometimes when we become distracted in our minds and we get into that emotion mind, and we feel the anxiety and the stress, and we know when those stressful moments arise, it increases the cortisol and the adrenaline in our mind, which increases our heart rate, our blood pressure, our breathing rate, so we're almost hyperventilating. So being mindful gives us an opportunity to take those deep breaths, bring clean air, fresh air into our bodies, expel the stale air that's trapped inside of us. So that's some of the basics of what being mindful does. And we've spent a lot of time with the kids, and the kids really enjoy the mindful activities. But again, trying to get away from that train of thought. Not that mindful meditation isn't a good thing, it is a very positive thing. But being mindful is really important to be aware of. If you're sitting in math class and your teacher is explaining to you different theorems or algebraic expressions, and you're thinking about that argument you had with mom or dad on the way in, or you're thinking about the fact that you forgot your cleats for practice and the bus is leaving at 2:30 and mom is at work and dad's in the city. Oh, what am I going to do? Coach is going to kill me. Like, you're not focused on the algebraic expressions or the theorems that you need to know for that test on Thursday. And then that's going to cause you more stress. So it's kind of a snowball effect. Does that make sense? So, and for those of you who have kids at the high school, your children from the high school should be aware of the term mindful, being mindful. Really important, so reiterate that at home. And this is something that I use. Being mindful is something that I use. I travel the Merritt Parkway, so I've been coming here my 29th year, traversing the Merritt Parkway. And driving for me is a stressful thing. So if someone would cut me off and I would get into that emotion mind, and I've really changed to the point where I just take a few deep breaths, and that's enough to get my foot off of the accelerator, get myself back into the right frame of mind to where I'm not going to put myself in danger or potentially someone else in danger. So.
No, I just wanted to add what I think is pretty cool as far as with the kids go. I was in a 12th grade advisory, and the kids will start talking at the end of the mindful activity about things that they do. And one of the kids was saying to Dr. Kingston, remember Dr. Kingston, you said that you did this to help you sleep, and I've been trying this, listening to a particular soundtrack or this. So they really are internalizing it and trying different strategies, because that's what it's all about, to be able to how to focus better, or how to relax and not have your mind racing, or things like that. And it's pretty, I think it's pretty powerful.
Okay, and then this is the final piece that we'll talk about, is this emotion mind, reasonable mind, and then where we want to be making important choices or decisions in our lives, wise mind. So, and this is really, I don't know, I like this lesson the most. And the kids really took to it, they really could understand it, because I think most of it, the biggest reason is because they spend so much time in emotion mind because of the stress that we're all feeling. But here's the theory. So emotion mind, there's these three states of mind. Emotion mind is the right part of our brain, and it's us when our emotions are high. So we're doing things, we're reacting with our emotions controlling the actions. So very little logic, but emotion. Okay, so we're driven by our heart, what we feel in our heart, and it's reactive, it's impulsive. If we spend a lot of time in emotion mind, it can be exhausting, it can be chaotic. I'll show you an example of emotion mind in a minute. And then there's the other side. There's reasonable mind. That's just the opposite of emotion mind. So that's the left side of our brain, kind of controls that. It's very fact-driven. So it's facts, just the facts, all facts. It's very statistical and linear. A lot of times it's just a flat affect, very mechanical. Okay, very little or no emotion at all. So this part is important because we need to know the facts, and we need to be driven by facts and the information, but we need to involve some kind of emotion. So that's where we need to mesh emotion mind and reasonable mind to where it's wise mind. And we all have wise mind. It's kind of the inherent wisdom that's within all of us, especially when we're calm, and we're not under crisis, we're not feeling stress. So it's, again, that synthesis between the right side of our brain and the left side of our brain. hopefully, a lot of our decisions, especially important decisions and choices in our lives, will be made when we're in wise mind as opposed to making them just out of when we're in emotion mind or just in reasonable mind. I'm going to show you an example of the two different types of minds, and then I'm going to bring it back to an example we did in class with our seniors in advisory, because I'm a senior class advisor. And the example we gave had to do with the choice of which college to go to. So let me show an example. This is an example of reasonable mind. So this is from the Big Bang Theory. This is Sheldon.
Just in time. I believe I've isolated the algorithm for making friends.
Sheldon, there is no algorithm for making friends.
Hear him out. If he's really onto something, we could open a booth at Comic-Con, make a fortune. See, my initial approach to Kripke had the same defense as those that played Stu the Cockatoo when he was new at the zoo.
Stu the Cockatoo? Yes, he's new at the zoo.
It's a terrific book. I've distilled its essence into a simple flowchart that will guide you through the process.
Have you thought about putting him in a crate while you're at the apartment?
Hello, Kripke. Yeah, Sheldon Cooper here. It occurred to me that you hadn't returned any of my calls because I hadn't offered any concrete suggestions for pursuing our friendship. Yet perhaps the two of us might share a meal together. I see. Well, then perhaps you'd have time for a hot beverage. Popular choices include tea, coffee, cocoa. I see. No, wait, don't hang up yet. But what about a recreational activity? I bet we share some common interests. You tell me an interest of yours. Really? On actual horses? Tell me another interest of yours. I'm sorry, I have no desire to get in the water, so I absolutely have to. Tell me another interest of yours.
He's stuck in an infinite loop. I can fix it.
It's interesting, but isn't ventriloquism by definition a solo activity? Yeah. Wait, tell me another interest of yours. Is there any chance you like monkeys? What's wrong with you? Everybody likes monkeys. Hang on, Kripke. A loop counter and an escape to the least objectionable activity. Howard, that's brilliant. I'm surprised you saw that.
Gee, why can't Sheldon make friends?
All right, Kripke, that last interest strikes me as the least objectionable, and I would like to propose that we do that together. Tomorrow. Yes, I'll pay. All right, goodbye. All right. Time to learn rock climbing.
All right. So an example, perfect example of reasonable mind. It's all fact-driven. It's very data-driven, linear, okay, based on very little emotion. Hopefully, a lot of our choices or decisions, important choices and decisions, aren't just based on those things. Uh-oh. Maybe we're not going to see the same thing.
You know, I think it's because, maybe because you're live, it's on your account.
Oh, it's on. I didn't log in over there.
Maybe we just talk through it emotion mind.
Yeah. So the other example was from, if you remember the movie Pretty Woman. Mystic Pizza. Yeah, same actress. Right. I think, right?
Yes.
Julia Roberts. Yeah. It wasn't that.
Yes.
Yeah, Mystic Pizza. And it was, she got into this emotion mind when she showed up. Her boyfriend, her boyfriend was supposed to be at his grandmother's house in Greenwich, and she showed up at this restaurant and she saw him with a beautiful woman on his arm, and she went into emotion mind and started kicking her truck and pulled up to his Porsche and dumped these big vats of fish from the docks into his Porsche convertible. And it turned out she was in this extreme rage, emotion. Turns out it was her boyfriend's sister that he was with, not another woman. So it was a perfect example of you see something sets you off, and the action urge is to kick and punch and scream because you're in this extreme emotional state, and that's how you deal with it. That's how you become very impulsive. But when you're in emotion mind, trying to get yourself back to wise mind, again, that synthesis between emotion mind and reasonable mind, you need to think about it, and you need to look at what's going on. So we need to use our five senses. So we need to not describe. Observe. Observe is the first thing. So in that instance, she observed her boyfriend with another woman. And think about it. Before you fly off the handle, who is that person? Could it be a relative? So, before you fly off the handle, get yourself back to observing. In her mind, he was cheating on her. But in reality, it was his sister. So we're trying to teach the kids in class to use those five senses before you make impulsive, quick decisions based on that emotion. So observe what you're seeing, kind of describe in your mind what's going on before you respond, before you act on it. So that's pretty much the theory behind emotion mind, reasonable mind, and then those wise mind choices. The example we used in advisory with the seniors was the choice of which college to go to. Are you going to use your reasonable mind and just base your decisions on the facts? Okay, they have my major. I want to go to school in a city as opposed to a rural setting. It's a small college versus a big college. Are you basing it on that, or are you putting some emotion into it? Yeah, I really like the culture when I visited, and I really like the vibe, and they have extracurriculars that I would be interested in attending. So using both sides of your mind. On the other side, you don't want to base your choice on where to go to college just on your emotion. Oh my God, University of Miami, they have the best looking women or the best looking guys. Like, I definitely want to go there. No, because they may not have your major. So meshing both the reasonable mind and the emotion mind to make big choices in your life. So that's the theory behind the wise mind. So here's your take-home points, literally. So take these points home, use them with your kids, practice and learn together. Try to validate. When you're in conflict or when you're in an argument, try to see the other side, where they're coming from. Think dialectically. Think of their side of the story. Don't give in and compromise, but just understand where they're coming from and why they are, arguing or doing whatever they are doing. Be mindful. We are distracted. We're all busy. Try to be in this moment. One thing that we definitely do more in our house, during dinner, we fully participate. We never had the no cell phone rule in our house, and now we do. We need to fully participate. We need to be present, have dinner together, no text messages, no video games. We're just mindful. We're participating and we're being mindful in this right here and right now. And then make wise mind decisions. So you can feel when you're in emotion mind. You get warm, you start to kind of hyperventilate. Feel that. Understand that you're in emotion mind. What can you do to bring yourself back to making a wise mind decision as opposed to an impulsive decision or an impulsive action? Questions? Any of that? Yeah.
suggestions that you can make in ways that we can support our students if they find themselves in an invalidating environment in a class?
Excellent question.
I can try. So let's say they're in a class and the adults in the classroom, I always tell people, the adults, the kids' perceptions are our reality. You might not think that, or again, people are trying the best they can, but it's not working. My suggestion is that the student needs to go and be validated and speak to the counselor, and then whatever else might have to happen would then happen amongst the adults. Different things can happen. You can have a counselor and a teacher and a student together to kind of work through this, and we set it up so before we're going to sit down with Ruby, I'm going to tell you, Andy, that you are going to listen to understand, and you are not going to talk for the first 2 minutes of this conference. Like, I think we have to sometimes be that prescribed, and that's what we do to make sure that the student is heard. So that's one of the things. I mean, we have a tremendous staff with our school counselors, social worker, and psychologist, and that's where the student should go to be validated, and then they use their judgment, and we meet with them all the time to be able to get on it, because no one is intentionally wanting to hurt somebody. Like, it goes back to people are trying to do the best they can, but sometimes they need a little bit of guidance to be able to do it.
One thing that James, help me answer your question too. One thing that I learned about validation is that sometimes, even as a parent, when I was trying to be understanding and helpful, I was actually invalidating unintentionally. So if my son were to come to me and say, I'm really upset, Dad, about the science test, I didn't do well, and I would say, oh, Connor, don't worry about it, it's not a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
In my attempt to make him feel better, I'm actually not validating his feelings, because it is a big deal to him in that moment. So the better response on my part would be, I understand, Connor, that's really upsetting for you. I know you study really hard on that. And why don't we sit down at some point and find a time where we can maybe look at how you studied so we can do better the next time.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's sometimes that unintentional try to make the student or child feel better that actually does invalidate. And that was one of my biggest takeaways as a parent, because you're trying to help. And sometimes you're just not acknowledging that is a big deal to them at that moment. Doesn't mean you agree with their reaction to it, but you have to understand. So I want to take a couple more questions if people have them. I want to just for the purpose of the recording, kind of close this down. Thank you so much for your participation today. I do want to just quickly mention that all of these skills that we're learning and teaching are in this book, written by the Mazas as well as Alec Miller, who is consulting with the district. These are research-based, tried and true strategies with a lot of evidence behind them. So we are very, very pleased, again, to be able to bring this to our students as part of our curriculum. Thank you again to Lisa and Dennis for putting this together. Thank you again to WEF for helping fund this initiative. So we'll stop the recording now.